Hello and welcome to the Heart Wisdom Podcast with Ralph McIntyre, where we explore the wisdom that comes through the open, connected heart. Well, this week I want to talk about expression or authentic expression. And I want to kind of take it down a totally different road. So, if you think you are in control of yourself, you are correct and not correct and sadly mistaken and all sorts of complicated answers to that question. Am I in control? Do I only do what I want to do? Am I connected to my authentic truth? The simple answer is yes. The more complex answer is what this podcast is about. So I want to start by giving some background theory to help us understand what I'm going to talk about. If you think of yourself as fractal in the sense that it's not just one you, there's your karmic you, there's your conscious you, there's your subconscious you, there's your wounded you, there's your inner child you. All these different representations of you have a voice, are driving the car, so to speak. And so when you think you're connected to your authentic you, yeah, you're connected to your authentic you, but what you think is your authentic you is the question. And the amount of time that the karmic you, the wounded you, the subconscious you is driving the car would astound you. You know, it's like, oh, let me get quiet and tune into what's going on for me. Are you tuning into what's going on for you? Or are you tuning into what's going on for you through the filter of the subconscious you, the karmic you, the wounded you, the inner child you? More often than not, that's what's going on. So you're probably wondering as you listen to this, it's like, okay, so how do I get in touch with my authentic you? Or my authentic me? And simply put, you're always connected to your authentic you or authentic me. It's impossible not to be. But what I'm really wanting to talk about is regaining the ability to choose from what you're coming from. Because so often our lives are controlled by the subconscious mind, not the conscious mind. We think we're in conscious control. We think, oh yeah, I'm in conscious. But that subconscious, that karmic wounded, the inner child you, is the one that's actually driving the car. And it's not easy. It's like, that old statement. It's like, how do you know you're talking from your subconscious? Well, you don't. That's why they call subconscious. It's you're unaware of it. One of the easiest ways to know where your subconscious is to look at the parts of your life that aren't working for you. Not aren't working for other people, but aren't working for you. And generally speaking, if you pay attention to them from a removed perspective, if you listen to my first podcast in this series on radical ownership, and even on my second podcast about everything being God, it'll give you some more input on what we're talking about here. But if you're able to observe your actions from like a removed observer perspective, it's easier to start to see the subconscious patterns. And then I like to use affirmations. I like to use clearings. I like to, for me, a lot of it has to do with feeling worthy. Most often what is in your life is what you feel like you deserve. And so often what you feel like you deserve comes out of the subconscious, comes out of the karmic, you, comes out of that inner child wounded you. It's like, and the way this works is that the karmic wounds of the past, that's the part of you that chooses your parents, chooses your circumstances, chooses all of the trauma that you're going to manifest in this life to help you work through the karmic trauma. So it's like, imagine the karmic you chooses your parents to lay down the inner child wounding, to lay down the subconscious so that you can work through the issues from the karmic perspective. And I'll probably do another podcast on this and get deeper into it. But from my perspective, so much of what's going on in the physical world really has nothing to do with the physical world. It's more of an avatar. And we think we're dealing with the physical world, but we're really dealing with the energy of the fifth dimension or the non-physical world. And we see it as a physical aspect. It's like, oh, I always get angry with my partner when she does this. Or this tends to set me off. Or I don't feel like I deserve, so I can't, do things. And we think it's all these physical things. And the more and more I sit with it, the more and more I realize it's like has nothing to do with the physical world. It has everything to do with the energetic world. And the work we do in the physical world just allows that energetic world work to happen. So by understanding this, you can kind of sit back and watch what's going on in the physical world and not be so attached to it. Because that whole ego, that who I am, that persona that we're all connected to, trapped in, attached to, it's a beautiful thing, but it's not us. It's only a piece of us. It's not even really the true us. Because the true us is from a soul perspective. This physical reality is nothing. Has nothing to do with who we are, truly, from a soul perspective, from the 5D perspective. So, how to get more in control of what you're doing is the question. Well, the simplest way to do that is to realize that you're not in control. It's like this concept of, let me tune into my authentic truth. It's like you don't tune into your authentic truth. We don't know what our authentic truth is. You have to be an enlightened spiritual master to understand what our authentic truth is. All we know is what our authentic truth is in the moment, filtered through all of these subconscious, karmic, early childhood wounds. That's all we ever know. So once you really kind of have the, so to speak, come to Jesus moment and say, oh, I'm not in control. I'm not able to be my authentic self. It's just an illusion. You actually start to gain control. You actually start to be able to choose more of who you come from. Because the minute you identify it, then you can start working on it. The minute you kind of realize it's like, oh, this, so to speak, quote unquote, authentic self, these choices gets me into all sorts of trouble that doesn't work for me. I wonder if it's my authentic self or if it's my karmic wounded self or my subconscious self. And very likely, if it's not working for you, if it's not creating you happiness and joy in your life, and I don't mean the lower ego happiness or joy, that in the moment happiness or joy, that in the moment calmness of like, oh, I'm in touch with my inner self, I feel at peace. That's not what I'm talking about here. Because that in the moment inner peace and feeling at peace quite often is the subconscious way of pacifying you to think that you're in control. In reality, you're not. Because quite often when you are connected with a more authentic self, and it's funny, even as I say authentic self, I'm really not trying to say that one part of you is more authentic than the other. Because it's really not the case. All of it's your authentic self. That karmic you, that subconscious you, that early child, that's all a representative of you in this physical world. It's all a representative of you, and none of it's a representative of you. From the fifth dimension, you got to remember, this physical reality is not you, has nothing to do with you. You are not you. You have nothing to do with you, the concept of you. But with that said, we're all in the physical world. We're all doing work in the physical world. If you're listening to this podcast, chances are you're in the third dimension, so to speak, stuck in a body. Haven't got a ticket off this rock yet. Stuck, that's an interesting word, because we're really not stuck in this body. If you talk, look into Babaji or even Jesus Christ, being able to come in and out of the physical realm. So, getting more in control of where you make your decisions from, where your feelings are coming from, how you're reacting to things, how you're interacting with people, how you feel safe. Because quite often from the ego, the subconscious, the wounded child, the things that make you feel safe aren't the things that make you feel safe. It's kind of like alcohol, it's like, oh, drinking alcohol's great. It's a great way to calm down. And not to say there's anything wrong with drinking alcohol. I don't want to, make anything wrong or right. But it's like, it doesn't really calm you down. It may put a Band-Aid on that energy. It may give you a respite, but the energy doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't really calm you down. It's like you have to kind of dive into the inner work. You have to dive into that subconscious work to really get calmed down. And so one of the easiest ways is to really, that podcast I did on radical ownership. It's like, no, I manifest everything in my life. Why am I manifesting this in my life? Why am I manifesting in this life? In my life is one of the keys to getting control of your life. Because once you take ownership, then you can do something about it. So really kind of what I'm talking about in this podcast is like, admitting to yourself that you're not connected to your authentic self. You never have been, you never necessarily will be. And you always have been and you always will be. And I know this sounds conflicting, but if you think about it, the non-authentic self in the moment is your authentic self in the moment. It's like you can't not be your authentic self in the moment. You always are. If you did it, that was your authentic expression for that moment. It's what you do in the next moment. It's what's your authentic self in the moment doing for you as far as in your life? Is it bringing you what you want, or is it keeping you from what you want? And that's the big answer here. It's like, are you getting quiet and touching in with that authentic self to keep you from what you really need in your life? Or are you getting quiet and getting in touch with your authentic self to bring more of what you need in your life? From the heart wisdom perspective, that connected to another person, that open, connected heart is where the power is. That's what this podcast, this series, the way it's getting downloaded for me, it's all about opening and connecting to the power of connected hearts. So, if it's getting you more connected with another person, getting you more connected with yourself, it's possibly more of the authentic in this dimension self rather than the subconscious, karmic, or the wounded self. The simple answer, though, is that you can't do anything wrong, so don't worry about it. The more complex answer is you can't do anything right, so don't worry about it. It's not where you're going. It's the each step along the way. So one of the simple North Stars to look at is this opening my heart and allowing me to connect deeper in love with other people? Or is this keeping me safe, quote unquote safe? My heart closed and not connected with other people. And there's no right or wrong answer. For me, and I would hope if you're listening to this podcast for you, the open, connected heart is the gold standard. That deep connection with another person, that love, letting the love of the world, of the others, in and out of your life. Letting your love out for others and letting others' love in for you is what this podcast is about. All right, I hope this makes sense. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm trying to do a recording once a week, although being consistent is not one of my strong points. I'll probably try to do once a week or at least once every other week, or sometimes I might do a couple times a week. It's kind of when they get downloaded, I get the information, I try to redo the recording. All right. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a spectacular day. And remember, do you want to have your heart open and connected with someone else? If so, don't let anything close it down. Anything. Period. All right. Enjoy.